everyone. We're live. Josh, this episode had so much in it. Like I didn't even really know where to start with this. But one thing that is kind of a little out of context of the rest of the episode and where I want to start with you is we're going to jump right into it because there's so much to unpack. But first thing, let's discuss this because Zeb is in this episode.
Yes.
No reason why. He doesn't contribute a lot to this episode, but it was awesome to see him. What do you think this means for not only future episodes, but future shows when it comes to them introducing Zeb? And I don't know, Josh, also, how do you think he looked? Because I thought he looked awesome.
He looks awesome. And they brought back, I made sure to look it up, Steve Blum is the original voice of Zeb in the Star Wars Rebels. And that made me really happy to use the original voice actor from Rebels. There's been some talk that people want Kanan Jarrus to have a flashback episode, especially during Ahsoka. And Freddie Prinze Jr. has made it very clear in other interviews he has no interest in revisiting that character because he thought that the way that it ended was perfect, and he does not want to play the live-action Kanan Jarrus in Ahsoka. I think there was a lot of people that were hoping for that. And I think they recast
that could always be
it.
a bluff. That could always be a bluff.
I mean, it could be. I think with Zeb's obviously CGI. Well done CGI.
Yeah.
But Hera Syndulla is going to be live action just like Ahsoka is, and Sabine Wren. Well, Sabine Wren, you really can't do CGI. She's Mandalorian. But like Hera and Ahsoka are going to be live action. So you're going to have this difference in technique, let's call it, in bringing these Rebels characters to life. But I love it. It shows that Zeb is still part of the New Republic, that he continues to be a soldier after Star Wars Rebels. This is where he's at. So if anyone's been wondering, hey, where's Zeb? Is Zeb going to be part of the Ahsoka series? Maybe. This is a little breadcrumb, a little fan service that gets people excited to see what is upcoming, and we know what's upcoming, and it's Ahsoka. And there's been a lot of rumors we may be getting Ahsoka sooner than later.
Well, I think we're going to find out pretty soon because the Star Wars Celebration is coming up. It's in the UK, so I don't think you or I are flying out to be there. But I think we're going to get an Ahsoka trailer and possibly a timeline for when that's going to be on. I also was wondering, though, the fact that he's here, he's with the flight crew. He's obviously part of whatever this Blue Squadron is that's there. Are we seeing possibly what the Rangers of the New Republic is going to look like? And
okay.
Is Zeb going to be part of that? And I mean, that then brings up, who else would be involved? Would Hera be involved in that? Or would we get some other characters that we have from the books? Possibly.
So on the Hera front, it sounds like she is going to be a general.
Okay.
So she's gonna be up there in the ranks. So
she would be leading this, if anything.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be up flying.
Right.
Which is weird for Hera, because that's all she ever wanted to be, was up in the air. But of course, there is a reason for her to be down on the ground now, which is Jacen Syndulla. So that's another character I don't think we'll see in this series, but could be an interesting character moving forward, especially since other than Ragnar, there's not a lot of other children for Grogu to interact with. It would be nice to see Grogu and Jacen Syndulla, two Force-sensitive children, interacting with each other. I know Grogu's like a 55-year-old child, but he is a child nonetheless. So that would be cool. I overall, I like seeing this, and I like that they must have planned for a while for this to be in there, because we've seen what happens when Disney rushes to get a CGI character into a show, and it's not always perfect. I thought Zeb looked incredibly good in this. Like his mannerisms, his facial movement, like all of it was top notch. So I think that this has been in the plans for a while. So it's definitely pointing towards something. But let's not spend our whole time talking about Zeb, since this is just a minor piece of the show. The major piece of the show this week, and everything's kind of focused around, even the name of the show, The Pirate, was on Gorian Shard, who invades Navarro, and so, you know, there's some thinking about this of like why is Gorian Shard doing this, right? And one of the things they mention is creating a pirate outpost, which, you know, very good reason to do that. But do you think he's working for someone, possibly someone of a blue skin shade?
It would be interesting. I mean, chaos, right? You need chaos is either a pit or it's a ladder, as we learned in Game of Thrones. And if you can convince other parties to create as much chaos as possible, that could distract people from what is really happening behind the scenes. We've seen this technique before with Maul, and Maul trying to stage a siege on Mandalore, thinking he's going to take over the planet. No, it was meant for him to set up a trap for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And instead, he gets Ahsoka Tano, as we all learned at the end of Clone Wars. So this could be just try to implement as much chaos as possible. It could also be a technique to possibly snuff out the Mandalorians, which, if that was the end goal, if there's a Thrawn or another big bad that's convincing these pirates to wreak havoc on Navarro, congratulations, you succeeded, because now all the Mandalorians are in one place.
Well, I mean, could that be part of it? Could it be that someone like Thrawn is trying to keep the Mandalorians away from Mandalore, right? Like, is he just kind of pushing and pushing, or is he trying to take some other route with them, right? Or is he trying to draw them into a larger war that he wants to have with them? It's kind of unknown as to what the Empire is trying to do.
There's a third option. The third option, which is a real world option, is testing what does the New Republic do in instances like this. And the real world option that we have seen in current events is China sends a spy balloon over the United States, or Russia sends fighter jets into U.S. border waters in Alaska to test just how quickly the United States reacts. And I'm sure the United States does the same thing with China and Russia. That could also be a technique used here in this story, in just trying to gauge, if I influence these pirates to bombard a planet, what does the New Republic do? If they do nothing, which is what happened here in this episode, then yes, we can scale operations very quickly.
Keep inching towards, right? Keep inching towards the mid-rim, really. And you know what, Josh, that's a great point, because if you look at any of the stuff that Thrawn's done in numerous books that have been written about him in Legends and in canon, is that in addition to studying the art of cultures and understanding them through that, he also tests their military abilities and kind of understands how they fight before he gets into a bigger battle with them. He'll draw out some information from them so that he could understand, this is their weakness, this is how we attack them. But to your point, the New Republic's not even giving him that. They're just going, oh, we're not going to do anything, which is, for him, it's got to look like, okay, well then the outer rim is wide open.
Right.
And you know, I don't need everything to keep coming back to Tatooine, but if he is up in the region of Mandalore and he's moving down towards the kind of the bottom of the outer rim, then it could be heading back towards that way, where he's trying to consolidate the entire outer rim underneath him. So we may be headed back there at some point. I don't think this season, but I think it would be a way to tie back in someone like Boba Fett and have the Mandalorians come in a similar vein to how they came into the episode this week. That said, you know, we're talking about what this could be, what could be a larger story here. And Carson Teva is a guy who is definitely looking at it going like, there's connected pieces here. Now, the part that Teva is missing is Thrawn. He does not know about Thrawn. He thinks it's probably connected to Moff Gideon, which it likely is. Gideon's in play here. But he tries to go to ladies' man Tim Meadows for some help, and they discuss this, but Elia Kane is there. Let me ask you a quick question about Elia Kane. If you got someone off of like the worst person in the galaxy ship, and you were rehabilitating them and you were giving them a job, would it be a job within your government? Because it seems like a bad idea.
It seems like a bad idea, but she's playing it really well. And she is the spy within the ranks. She is the mole right now, creating chaos and disrupting things. I think she's clearly working for Moff Gideon. And the more I think about it, for this particular show, Moff Gideon is probably the big bad for this season, but we know who he would be reporting to. He's only a Moff. He is not a Grand Admiral. There is a clear difference in rank between the two. So her thwarting, as far as with Carson Teva trying to connect the dots, and Tim Meadows' credit, I forgot what I forgot what his character name was already.
Yeah, I'm already blanking on it. It's
Tim Meadows. That's all I could say. He's like, hey, Tim Meadows made it to Star Wars. Awesome. He's a corporal or something like that. And saying that it's a stretch, and it could be a stretch. I mean, the evidence is very flimsy. Carson Teva is doing the great television cop show thing of, I'm trusting my gut instinct here.
Yeah.
And I do like Carson Teva being a Star Wars cop. That would be a very interesting series, and hopefully now he is the main character for would be Ranger show.
Would be perfect. Rangers of the New Republic being the Carson
just
Teva
have it
show.
Carson Teva and Seb. That's what we need.
Like buddy cop.
Yeah,
buddy
exactly.
cop show. I love it.
Yeah. So I think she's doing a fantastic job, and at this moment, based on the reaction that she had regarding Carson Teva saying, "I've heard that Moff Gideon didn't make it to trial," I think she's working for Moff Gideon.
So yeah, and let me ask you a question about Carson Teva there, because he saw the insignia on her chest that was like showing that she was in the assimilation program, or whatever they call it. Speaking of like what you were talking about earlier of Thrawn testing and trying to see a reaction, what's going to happen, did you feel like Carson Teva was doing the same there? Like, he doesn't have any reason to believe that Gideon didn't make it to trial yet. He doesn't have any reason to believe that. Do you think he was just trying to draw out a reaction, just see how because he kind of side eyes when he says it,
right? Maybe again, that would be the cop instinct to see if she could show her hand and what her true intention is. Because why are you in here all of a sudden when I'm having this conversation, asking, "Hey, do you want some coffee?" Like, why are you butting into this conversation exactly? Who are you? What is your intention? Yeah, and the more I think about this, I hope Carson Teva is like the main character in Rangers. I'm good with the Star Wars buddy cop type of show. Let's make that happen, Dave and John. The more I think about it, but yeah, I think she's working for Moff Gideon. However, is she able to get instructions from Moff Gideon, or is she just acting on her own and playing her own playbook to do whatever is necessary to help get the New Republic stench away from Moff Gideon?
It feels like she is just trying to infiltrate and rise up in the ranks. I could see a scenario where she truly believes that Moff Gideon is still in custody, and she's like working out, how do I free him, right? How do I get information on where he is? How do I free him? And there's part of me that wonders, we'll get to this later in this, but like, is she already gathering important information and she's getting that to someone, right? Are we going to get a different character, maybe not Thrawn, but someone working for Thrawn? What was the captain in the books, Pelion?
Yes.
I think they even refer to Pelion. I don't know if he lives through Rebels, to be honest, because it doesn't go well for them at the end. But like, I wonder if there's going to be a character like that. Rebels did a bad job of keeping many of his characters from the book alive, so we'll see who those characters might be. But it seems like there could be some kind of middle person that's going to kind of help out in this communication path. Because you make a good point. Like, how would she be in communication with Gideon at this point? We don't really know.
Right.
But Carson Teva is smart about what he does, and he says, well, we think he's smart about what he does right now. He may have laid a trap. We don't know this yet, but he's smart about getting help for Grief Karga. He tries the regular route. That fails him, but apparently R5 was in this show for a reason.
Yes.
And that reason is to help Carson Teva find the Mandalorians, which he does, and then there's this wonderful speech between that Din gives and then Paz Vizsla gives, and again, the directors of these episodes have really tried to fool us at every kind of turn. Like just really, like, even the R5 thing. I know we were all kind of looking around and was like, is he talking about Bo-Katan? Who's he talking about? And then it's R5, of course. Din gives the speech asking for help. Paz Vizsla just comes out, gives his part of the speech where you think, oh man, this is not going to go well. But he delivers it in a way that gets the attention of everyone in the room, and then, says why are we doing this? It's because we're Mandalorians. I thought it was a great speech. I thought it was a great turning point. I love that because they all have helmets on, that directors have found ways to still get reactions out of everybody, even like the little head tilts out of Din and Bo when he turns on things, the little chatter as people are like turning their heads and starting to talk to each other. Like, they did a really good job of that. Like, to me it's underrated how difficult it must be to go like, okay, I've got a room full of people that I need a reaction from and no faces. Right. So I think they do a really good job of that. But what did you think of the speeches and ultimately what comes out of this decision?
Well, I think it's a type of unity that we haven't seen before, or we haven't seen in a while from Mandalorians. And it does not require Din to pull out the Darksaber. Have we seen him use the Darksaber in this season yet?
We have only against these underground dwellers, the Chud from that one episode. He chops them up with that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, we've seen Bo-Katan use the Darksaber.
Oh yeah. She's much better with it than he is, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen in this episode. We'll get to that.
Right. So right now he's able to unify through his actions to unite the Mandalorians. But obviously, and we'll get to this point in a moment, he's not the only Mandalorian. Din's not the only Mandalorian uniting people as far as his Mandalorian clan. I just love Paz's pause, and everyone's like, yeah, we shouldn't do this. And he's like, of course we should do this. We're Mandalorians. This is what we do. We kick ass. We go into fights. We don't question it. And I just love as far as that particular part of the speech and the turn there. And I like as far as the strategy, and I know we'll get into the fight here in a moment, but the halftime speech has, for as long as we've known in this series, and he admits it during the speech that he has disagreements with Din, that ultimately, as long as you are a Mandalorian, Paz is on your side.
Yeah, I mean, I like that part. I like the entirety of how they handled that scene. I think one thing that stuck out to me is when, Din mentions raising their foundlings in the light, right? And then Paz Vizsla repeats that, and I think that's a kind of an interesting piece here. They focused a lot in this season on foundlings and how important foundlings are, and when they save the foundling, that's when the armorer kind of turns her attention to Bo-Katan again, and tells her that she had done something so great. I think the fact that they have more and more foundlings plays into this decision of like, yeah, it's fine, we're all in hiding, we live in this covert. When you see them in season 1, there's like no children around. I mean, they mention the foundlings, but there you don't see them. In this season, you're starting to see them. They're there. There's relationships between the parents and the foundlings, and that's got to play into it of like, okay, I can't raise my kids in the sewers, right? Like that's kind of like, that's where Paz is coming from in this. And so it was interesting to see, all right, it's time to emerge from our coverts and to show up. And my God, did they show up? So
yeah.
I mean, I put this in here as the Mandalorians versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, because they did not stand a chance. This is not a winning team, these Pirates. It was, even when they had them backed into a corner, like all I could think was, well, she called these guys Team 1, so I think something's coming. I think someone else is going to, and of course, Team 2 is truly the wrecking crew with Paz Vizsla, and I want to see that gun more in Star Wars. That thing's awesome. Gun. Yeah, but like the held one, like not the thing that's up on the mounted, no, just a guy walking around, kind of like Jesse the Body in Predator. Like that's what I'm envisioning. But yeah, like that scene was awesome. Tell me a little bit of your thoughts on the fight itself, Josh.
Yeah, and I think this is a bit of foreshadowing of future fights from the Mandalorians and why they're so effective. This is kind of like SEAL Team 6 dropping in to clear out a disaster zone. And they're well coordinated, they're well armored. Unlike stormtroopers, they can actually aim. They can be overwhelmed, but still win in those particular situations. We've heard the phrase that you're outnumbered 10-1, and Din likes those odds, and that's, a Mandalorian saying one can take on 10, and we see that in this particular episode, that they're very well coordinated. And against pirates, even though pirates are trying to set up an ambush, and they've got, as you mentioned, one squad cornered, when the backup squad comes in, they can quickly overwhelm. And even though if you do have a perch and you have them pinned down, they have ways of sneaking behind you and to take you out.
The armor, just fantastic. I think another thing on the fight, and this isn't anything that foreshadows to me or does anything, but it was just an awesome scene. They showed this in the trailers for the show, with the Mandalorians falling out of
right.
Bo-Katan's ship and turning on the jetpacks. I'd seen that scene 10 times already before this episode aired. It was still awesome. Like, It still was like, oh man, like the way that the ship just kind of like comes to a halt and they all release at the same time. And then, the Mandalorians and jetpacks it's just great. It like always works. And so I was, that was a part that I was like, they made this look really good. And I really, really enjoyed that. But yeah, you mentioned sneaking up, and yes, the armorer. We got to talk about the armorer in this scene. She, for some reason, every other Mandalorian loves their weapons, right? She's like, yeah, I'm going to stick with the old school. I just got my, I got my tongs and my hammer. That's all I need. I don't care how many guns are against me. Walks into a room with 5 guys and just destroys everybody. There's nothing better than her hitting that Trandoshan when he turns around and hitting him with the hammer. Bit of a cheap shot, sucker punch, I guess, but I loved it.
No, I really liked it as well. And I'm kind of wondering how she got onto the ground. I'm like, oh, you just appeared. Did you also drop with Team 2? And you know exactly where to go. That's convenient. But just throwing the hammer, that poor extra. Poor stunt double, that can't be light. Like, that's got to hurt. I don't care if this is acting. Like, that had to hurt. Like, it looked heavy when the armor threw it, and it sounded heavy when it made contact. Like, I'm sure that stunt double was feeling quite sore. I'm noticing the comment section about the Mandalorians, why they just didn't fly away. In this particular situation, it's not that great of a strategy because if you start flying away, if like one of you do, you become an easy target.
You're just exposed, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be exposed. So it's better off to stay on the ground and hiding. So that's why a lot of people have been questioning, well, they have jetpacks, just fly away. Well, one, jetpacks have limited fuel cells. We saw that in a recent episode as they're trying to track down the Raptor. And again, you can expose yourself. So you're best to just kind of take cover from the laser fire from the gun above.
We saw it in Book of Boba Fett too, when they're fighting against a million pikes, and they went airborne, and then they're just up there just getting shot at, and they end up having to come back down. Right. The other risk is they shoot your jetpack, and then you don't live.
Which is troublesome.
So yeah, but I enjoyed all of this, and I think it's a great way for the Mandalorians to kind of win the hearts of the remaining people of Navarro, and to get a plot of land there, and they do. And there's an Easter egg here when the High Magistrate gives them their land, which I thought Star Wars is riddled with Easter eggs, but I thought this was one of the cooler ones, and feel the need to mention it. They give them the tract of land from the Western Lava Flats to Bullock Canyon. And if you listen too quickly, you might think he said like Bullet Canyon, but it's Bullock. And you see it in the captions, which is a reference to Jeremy Bullock, who recently passed away, but is the original Boba Fett. So that's the guy who was in the armor in the original movies. And like, what a fitting tribute. Him and his family have been big supporters of everything that Filoni's been doing with the character. So it was cool to see just a little bit of a mention for a guy who kind of was the original guy walking around in that suit in Empire Strikes Back and in those other movies. So I like that. I had to mention it because I just thought that was class from Star Wars. So that the fight's over, they get their tract of land. And then there's this conversation between Bo and the Armorer, which is very interesting. I did not expect it to go the way that it went. I did kind of, after a while, wonder if the Armorer was going to take off her helmet,
right?
Which would have been something else, because we still don't know who she is. And I would assume on sight, Bo-Katan would know. But it's a great scene. I mean, the way she talks about the original Forge and how great it looked and all these things, but this one, despite how it looks, served the same purpose, did the same thing for the Mandalorian people. It is reminiscent of the kind of speech that we have in Thor Ragnarok of this isn't a place, this isn't a thing, it's a people.
Oh, yes.
Right? And like, kind of a similar vein here, although they do mention at the end here, not just reuniting the Mandalorians, but taking back Mandalore. So do you think their time on Navarro is short-lived? And the idea here is that Bo-Katan is going to round up more Mandalorians and then return to Mandalore?
I believe so. Yes. Now, I don't know how much the Armorer knows about Mandalore. What we, the viewer, know is that it's mostly abandoned, except for some really weird-looking creatures that the Mandalorians may have to group up and take over. But if you're going to rebuild a civilization, you need as many people as possible to make it work. And if you can retake Mandalore, and then any Mandalorians that are still in hiding, they can feel comfortable coming back home. So they're going to need more. They're going to need more. And I think this particular siege, or the counter siege on Navarro to protect the citizens of Navarro, maybe gives the Armorer confidence that we are stronger than what we are. But I can't recruit everyone to come back because not everybody follows the way. We need someone that now believes in the way, but could also speak on their terms. And there's only one person that could do that, and that's Bo-Katan.
Right. I love she walks both worlds. I thought that was a great way of saying it. And I think that that's an interesting way of the Armorer looking at the Mandalorians and thinking to herself, okay, there's not a way for us to say everybody has to follow these rules. That's just not going to work. But if Din were to lead them, or Paz or the Armorer, that no one would believe that. So Bo-Katan is their best hope for that. One question though, like if they go back to Mandalore, you mentioned it is abandoned. It seems to be abandoned, but as soon as they went there, they blew up Bo-Katan's house. So like, I'm wondering if, the pirates taking this, and when Carson Teva talks about this, when he's trying to appeal to get help, he talks about this being them trying to set up a base of operations. Could Mandalore actually be where the Empire is trying to reestablish a base of operations, a place where no one believes life can exist,
right?
A place that's off the map, and a place that has natural resources that are very important to building an army. Like, I am sure Thrawn and Moff Gideon would love to build some of those dark troopers that are made of Beskar. So I think that there's a little piece of me that's like, Bo's going to be like, yes, let's all get back together, but let's maybe stay on Navarro, So I think that there could be some conflict going there when it's like, okay, yeah, Mandalore's abandoned, but someone cares about it, and they got a lot of ships. So, do you want to go up against that fleet? So my question after all of that is, we know that this will probably go horribly wrong in some respect. How does this go horribly wrong for them?
That's a good question. I think in the next episode. So if we're trying to make some predictions for the next episode, we know that Bryce Dallas Howard is directing the next episode, and she has directed some of the biggest episodes for the Mandalorian. There is a rumor that Fen Rao could be in this next episode.
Oh, wow.
And that is who Bo-Katan meets first in her recruiting trip. So this may be the Bo-Katan college recruiting. She's the big head coach. Try to recruit all the top prospects. We may see Sasha Banks in the episode as well.
So is the thought she lived then? I think it wasn't clear if she lived she was shot by Gideon, but like there was no indication that she was actually dead in that in that scene.
I would be surprised if she actually died in that scene. So I could see the Night Owls getting reunited, but at the same time, are we ready to talk about Moff Gideon? Or are we still talking about the recruiting trip?
Let's combine them. Let's get into, because where is Moff Gideon?
Yeah. So where is Moff Gideon? I don't know, but we know that as they scan the ship, there is Beskar alloy, and the instant connection. The instant connection is Mandalorians freed Moff Gideon. And I'm wondering if this is going to be disruptive. If my prediction for the next episode is right, is that we get the Bo-Katan recruiting trip. She gets the Night Owls, and all of a sudden they got the New Republic on them. And they have to, prove that they had no idea about what happened to Moff Gideon.
Right.
So that's where I could see some instant conflict between the New Republic and the Mandalorians, even though we, the viewer, think you guys are on the same side. Please see it from the same perspective. But that's where we may get some conflict. But I'm curious where you think Moff Gideon is after Carson Teva found the Imperial transporter, and it's not in great shape.
So I feel like everybody has looked at this and gone, the Mandalorians are being framed here, right? I think there's good reason to think that. It'd be surprising if they just left behind Beskar, and that's and were sloppy in the job that they did. But I wonder if they actually have him. I wonder if they actually did go and get him. I don't think it depends on who it would be, but I don't think that they trust. Paz Vizsla certainly didn't trust the New Republic to provide justice. So it's possible that the Mandalorians actually did capture Moff Gideon. It's possible that they're interrogating him or torturing him or have already killed him. But I'm going to guess that they're just getting framed. So I think that I think Gideon, though, I think that Thrawn likely orchestrated this, because Thrawn is someone who would frame people that he's trying to discredit, people that he's trying to start conflict with, and the Mandalorians seem to fit that bill. Also, I think he probably would have done this by hiring pirates to do this. So it's possible that Gorian Shard's crew, before they went to Navarro, actually pulled this off, or some sect of his group. So, or just a different pirate group that Thrawn is using. This will ultimately, culminate in whose side are the pirates on in this kind of Mandalorians versus Empire versus New Republic thing. And this is probably Ahsoka show or later Rangers of the New Republic, but I think I'm always looking for a way to get my guy Hondo into this, and this is the only way that I could see it. And it may be the downfall of Thrawn eventually if Hondo gets on the other side of Thrawn. So we'll see how that goes. But in the immediate, Moff Gideon, I think, is alive. I think he is now serving under whoever is handling business for Thrawn in the Outer Rim. I think Thrawn is maybe still further out from the Outer Rim. I think that there's something that he found in, and we've talked about this a little bit. I think there's something that he's found outside of known space when he was out there with Ezra that is going to play into his power in the next few shows. And I think that's going to be, because I think on his own, with a single fleet, Thrawn is extremely dangerous. But I think there needs to be a little bit more. I think they might go to the original books and give him a Force user to be working with him, kind of working under him. It also creates the only kind of power struggle you could have with Thrawn, because I think he would just kill Moff Gideon if Moff Gideon decided to try and try and outmaneuver him. I don't think Gideon can. So I think that's interesting. But I do think Thrawn is kind of playing all of this, playing the giant chessboard that he likes to play in maneuvering things around and seeing how he can create havoc and how he, from Mandalore, can spread out to the entire Outer Rim and be an actual threat to the New Republic.
I like that. I like that a lot. And yeah, I'm really curious. I'm open to whatever direction they want to go, but I do think we finally do see Moff Gideon in this next episode. We kind of need to now. You have left this giant breadcrumb. I'm expecting to see Moff Gideon early and often in the next episode.
Man, Sabine Wren and Ahsoka beating the hell out of Moff Gideon would be great, but I don't think it would happen.
Would be shocking.
But I would, Sabine putting reeds underneath his fingernails to get him to talk. I would love it. I don't think Star Wars will go that direction, unfortunately. But Josh, thanks for joining me as always. This has been a lot of fun, and I think we now have at least a big bad of this series. We've been searching for one for a while. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of conflict real fast, and this Bryce Dallas Howard episode might be the lead-in. I think the last two episodes have the same director.
Is it John?
No, it's Famuyiwa,
okay.
who's now a executive producer on the show. So he's really stepped it up in this realm, and so I think they're giving him the reins on the last two episodes, and I think that's going to be all out battle. It's going to be
Jon Favreau is the lead writer for this upcoming episode.
Okay, so that's interesting. That does tip me off that maybe we wouldn't see Sabine or Hera in this unless Filoni had more of a creative part of this. So it's probably going to be a Gideon episode, and I look forward to that. And I hope we get a little calm between Gideon and comms officer Eliakim. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But thanks everyone for joining, and we'll talk to you soon. Make sure to watch the Sox game later today. See you then.